How's it going, guys? Welcome to another Playoff Predictors video. This one, we're going to be doing the entire group of 5, breaking it up in alphabetical order. So we'll start with the American Conference, picking every game as this beautiful website, which I will link down below, allows us to, and then we'll go through and do every single group of 5 conference. So we'll start with the American, then we'll do the CUSA, the MAC, the Mountain West, and the Sun Belt. And so since we're tackling so many, we can't mess around. Let's just get into it. With some of these FCS games, you do have to take pause and think about it a little bit more in some cases. Some of them not really, like we know South Florida is probably going to beat Bethune-Cookman, but it's not quite like the Power Conference ones where you know you can just run through. James Madison at Charlotte is a semi-interesting game. I think I'm going to take Rice at home here against Sam Houston. And then we're left with a few games here. Kennesaw State at UTSA. I like UTSA as the home team there. Don't think FAU or Temple are doing anything crazy. And then North Texas at South Alabama. This is actually one of the ESPN Pick'em games for Week 1. These games so close right now that it's getting a little bit surreal. But go ahead and give me North Texas to get a nice road victory against a team that's breaking in a new head coach. So Army at Florida Atlantic is an American Conference game this season. Give me FAU as the home team. I think Kansas State gets the job done, although that is a definite test for them. That one's going to be one I'm certainly tuning into for the season. Texas State, I'm really high on this season, and you'll probably see that in the Sun Belt predictions. But give me them at home against UTSA. I just like McLeod, and I like that team a lot. Don't want to get too repetitive because I will be tackling the Sun Belt later. But UTSA, we'll see if they can get over the hump. I've seen some people predicting them as the team that will come out on top of the American Conference. But we will see. South Florida, obviously a tough game at Alabama. Not likely to get a victory there. UAB at road game at Louisiana Monroe early in the season. I think they can get that victory there. North Texas is an interesting one, although it's not really Stephen F. Austin, but them as a team is an interesting one as we get more into these predictions. Tulsa at Arkansas State, East Carolina at Old Dominion, couple American at Sunbelt teams. I think the Sunbelt sweeps, and I think they sweep with that Texas State game too, except for UAB over ULM. So a lot of Sunbelt crossover in some of these middle games as the website's lagging just a little bit, but there we go. Our Week 2 selections are done, which takes us on to the third week of the season. So here we are in Week 3, Memphis at Florida State. Florida State going to be the team I'm picking there. That is a huge matchup, though, in terms of the New Year's 6 stakes for really both, not New Year's 6, that's the old way of speaking, playoff now, not New Year's 6, but for Memphis, for being the Group 5 representative, that is a big game. North Texas at Texas Tech. Give me Texas Tech. Picking a lot of the Power Conference teams here. I don't think there's going to be any shockers. App State at East Carolina is an interesting one. I almost feel like I might rock with East Carolina in this game, which is interesting that I've decided to do that. But I think I would take them in that game. Southern Miss hosting South Florida. Give me South Florida. That is definitely a trap game. Rice beat Houston last season, but give me Houston this time. We're on to Week 4. More of these just tough games. I do think Tulsa can win at Louisiana Tech. East Carolina at Liberty. Man, East Carolina's got a tough non-conference schedule. Coming off of a bad season for them too, 2-10. You don't like to see that many early tests that they're having to face. Temple and Stan Drayton. This year, I just don't have a ton of faith in that team. I don't think that they can make the changes necessary to right the ship and turn things around. I think Miami wins at South Florida. South Florida also a team that has a brutal non-conference schedule. Miami and Bama in that schedule. Give me FAU to win one at UConn, although that is a tough road game, and then give me Army at home. So we're starting to get into conference play, which means we can get in-depth on these American Conference teams a little more, like Tulane hosting UAB. I think, or hosting South Florida. In year 1 under John Summerall, Tulane is a contender in the American Conference, and it's because of how amazing of a coach John Summerall is and how great his staff is. He won the Sun Belt his first 2 seasons at Troy, and so I just think they can get the best of a South Florida team. It's going to be battered. That South Florida team will have played both Alabama and Miami at that point. Navy at UAB. I think Dilfer's squad will be improved this year. Charlotte at Rice is another tough one. I don't have a ton of faith in Mike Bloomgren and Rice, but they are home. I do think they get the win here. UTSA, I think it's a gutsy road victory at East Carolina, putting East Carolina off to a rough start. And then Army. I think Army can succeed in the American because of how well coached they are. You look at that, off to a 4-1 start, 3-1 start in the American Air Force at home. Give me that. I think UConn gets a win there. East Carolina at Charlotte. Charlotte is a team that's a complete wild card. Could this be the kind of game they win? Maybe, maybe not. Jake Garcia, East Carolina, I think take care of business. Tulane at UAB. Could this be a spot early in the season where Tulane lays an egg? I think not. I think they get the job done on the road. Army with a home victory here. UTSA at Rice. Big trap game for UTSA, but I'm trusting Jeff Traylor and that system and that program to get another victory here. North Texas at FAU is another interesting one. I think I'll take North Texas, although FAU looking for a big season for that team and that squad under Tom Herman. They had a rough season last year, and so they're looking to turn things around. And then this is a big one. Memphis at South Florida, one of the biggest games of the season. I honestly, at home, would take South Florida in this game. I am pretty high on Memphis as a whole, though. So Memphis gets back home. I think they win. Charlotte at Navy is another interesting one. I think I'm going to take Navy at home. Charlotte, I haven't given a conference win to yet. Maybe I should take them a little bit more seriously. But there's just no proven track record to that system working out and of bringing in a ton of portal players. And it's one of the reasons I'm a little bit lower on North Texas than some people might be. North Texas also had a huge portal influx over the last couple of seasons, and it hasn't necessarily been proven that that's something that can be a viable strategy now. I think Army wins this one against Air Force, puts themselves in a position to win the Commander-in-Chief trophy. Rice at UConn. UConn always gets some weird wins at home, so we'll give that one to UConn. And like I said, I don't have a ton of faith in Mike Bloomgren and Rice, but let's say they get a home victory versus Navy. South Florida at FAU is another interesting one. Give me South Florida, that battle between teams in the state of Florida. UAB at home. Trent Dilfer squad getting to 4-4. Jacob Zeno at quarterback for them. Memphis at UTSA is another interesting one. Tulane at Charlotte. I just don't know, man. I think I'm going to take Memphis. I think I'm going to take Tulane. Army at North Texas. Why not? Give me North Texas. I've been a little bit too high on Army. And that gets North Texas to bowl eligibility. So forget about what I said earlier, I guess. I think I have them at least making a bowl game, and I think their over-under win total might be lower than that. East Carolina hosting FAU. At this point, we've got them at 4-4. We've got FAU at 4-4. Give me the home team. That's a solid home field advantage. But maybe a letdown game against Tulsa the next week. Why not? Tulsa's a team that is kind of interesting to keep an eye on this season. One of those teams that could be without a head coach like Temple with Stan Drayton by the end of the season. And I just am finding it hard for me to pick Charlotte in any game. And I feel like sometimes I'm willing to give Charlotte the benefit of the doubt, but there just has not been a single game that has stood out to me. Like, I would rather take FAU at home over Charlotte. And I'm aware they have all the portal guys in Biff Poggi, but I don't know. Give me East Carolina getting a road victory at North Texas. Maybe that portal inconsistency shows. South Florida, Notre Dame. All right, so we have made it to what I believe is, well, the final week is Army-Navy, so we might as well just pick that game right now. I think Army beats Navy, although, you know what? Screw it. I'll pick Navy because I like Navy. I root for them every year. But here we go. Last week of the season, Memphis at Tulane. This is going to be a massive game no matter what. I like Memphis because of their veteran staff getting this road victory. That's Tulane's first conference loss, according to these predictions, which is a little wild until you look at the schedule and say, I think they can navigate that. I think that they can navigate this schedule. They've got road games at UAB, North Texas, Charlotte, Navy. I mean, I think they're better than all those teams. East Carolina, I think, could beat Navy here. That puts Navy to 4-8, even with the Army victory. Yikes. Did not realize how low I was on Navy, potentially. South Florida at Rice. I'm tempted to pick South Florida. That gets them to 9-3. North Texas at Temple is another one. Give me North Texas. Why not? Let's give Charlotte their first conference victory. Gets them to 2-10. And then let's just pick those down the stretch here. So an interesting result here. I noticed that with this first conference, I maybe didn't pick these teams, these bottom tier teams, to win as many games as I might when I'm looking at it. Like, maybe I'd give Temple like a random conference victory, and maybe I'd give Charlotte like a couple more in here or something like that. But basically, I think I just showed more favoritism to the top schools, having them get upset less. But I think there's more room for chaos. But in the meantime, this serves as a decent representation of my thoughts in the American. And the order is relatively accurate. I think Army's going to really succeed. I think East Carolina will bounce back. I think it'll be Memphis versus Tulane in the American Conference title game. And a lot of other stuff there. So That is my American Conference predictions. That means it is time to move on to the Conference USA, which is going to be a fun one. We got 10 schools in the CUSA. Now, last time I checked, some of these teams weren't showing up correctly. I think it's been fixed. I think Kennesaw State was not showing up correctly, but I see them showing up here now. So I have confidence that this is going to be accurate. But it's kind of a fun conference to pick because there's so few teams. It kind of reminds you of the conferences of old, which is a sad thing to say now. But we'll pick some of these week 1 games. I have UTSA winning that, Nebraska, Indiana. This one's a really interesting one. I actually think Jacksonville State can get that home victory over Coastal to start the year, but obviously losing to Louisville. Central Michigan at FIU is interesting. I like Mike McIntyre. Had a strong start last season. No reason to think they can't have a strong start to this season. This is an interesting one. Liberty at New Mexico State. We'll learn a lot about whether or not this new regime has them in a good spot, but I don't think so. That exodus we saw after Jerry Kill left, I think New Mexico State's going to have some growing pains. Playing against another team that had their coach leave abruptly in Fresno State. We've got Kennesaw State at San Jose State here. Going to hand them another win. So Kennesaw State will have to wait a little bit longer to get that first FBS win, their first season as an FBS team. We got FAU at Florida Atlantic. That was in the American Conference. I picked Florida Atlantic in that game, not changing on that. UTEP, I think, is going to be a dark horse in the CUSA, but Liberty at home is just an unfortunate draw for them. They're probably not getting the win there. Jacksonville State at Eastern Michigan. I think I'm just going to trust Jacksonville State in this. They surprised me last year with some of those non-conference performances, and so I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt here against Eastern Michigan and pick them. Western Kentucky at Middle Tennessee, a big-time early game, and Derek Mason getting an early test. I'm going to trust the proven system here in Tyson Helton, Western Kentucky, on the road. And then another one, Hawaii at Sam Houston State. Hawaii, a team that has had a little bit of turmoil this offseason. Stephen McBride with the off-the-field issues that mean he's probably not going to play a ton this season. And it's just a tough road game. Hawaii has not performed well on the road, especially when they get too far away from the island under Timmy Chang. So go ahead and give me Sam Houston State as soon as it lets me click here. Although I believe they're branding. They're starting to go with Sam Houston now. So that's an interesting one. So we get into week 4 in the CUSA. UTEP, a tough game against a Colorado State team that I think is ready to compete this season. So give me the Rams in that one. You've got Southern Miss at Jacksonville State. Jacksonville State getting another home game early. I like them in that one as well. So some non-conference success for Jacksonville State, and a 3-1 start would certainly be considered a success. I believe I gave Tulsa this victory in the American Conference, and then Liberty this one. And then we've got an FCS game here for FIU. We've got Middle Tennessee hosting Duke. It's an interesting, unique game there. And that leaves us with these last two, which are also pretty interesting games. I do think Duke gets the road victory at Middle Tennessee, but New Mexico State at Sam Houston State, and then Toledo at Western Kentucky, a top-tier MAC team against a top-tier CUSA team. That's good stuff. And then I think this is going to be an early case where we're going to learn that this New Mexico State team is pretty far off from the Jerry Kill teams. I think App State beats Liberty. I think it's the biggest game for the group of 5, and I think Liberty just was not tested during the regular season last year. This is going to be a big test for them. I think they're going to fail the test. I think they're going to lose a big game to an App State team that this is their window. This is their year. They really feel like it, and so if they get this victory, it's going to be huge for them throughout the season, and obviously more on that prediction when we get to the Sun Belt. So Louisiana Tech at FIU, FIU nearly beat Louisiana Tech on the road last season, and I really trust this rebuild long term. And I think FIU football will be better each year under Mike McIntyre, and so I think they get this victory to get to 3 wins on the season, which for FIU, back-to-back seasons with kind of a fast start like that, that is massive stuff. New Mexico State. I do think New Mexico State can still get the home victory. Bronco Mendenhall trying to build in his first year at New Mexico. We got Middle Tennessee on the road against Memphis. Got to give me Memphis in that one. You got Kennesaw State hosting UT Martin. And I think that's where they get their first victory as an FBS team, but not over an FBS opponent. Jacksonville State shouldn't have any issues on this Friday night game against Kennesaw State. UTEP hosting Sam Houston. I think UTEP can get that victory. Scotty Walden bringing in a lot of transfer portal guys. UTEP could be a team that messes with some people, although you look at that start 2-4. They do have a tough early stretch that might test them. I think Louisiana Tech could get this home victory. Middle Tennessee still trying to build. Derek Mason might feel some growing pains this year, and we're giving all home victories in Week 7. So that moves us to Week 8, where you've got Kennesaw State still seeking their first FBS victory, but I still got to trust Middle Tennessee at home. New Mexico State trying to get the home victory over Louisiana Tech, and I just think New Mexico State's going to be pretty not good. But I don't think they're that bad to the point where they would lose to Louisiana Tech. So give me New Mexico State there. Western Kentucky, road game at Sam Houston. I think they get the victory. UTEP wins at home versus FIU. Big one. Sam Houston, FIU, both similarly tiered teams. I think FIU gets this win to get to 4-4, which would just be the biggest, most phenomenal start for them. UTEP, I think, can get this type of road victory with the talent they infused this season. Kennesaw State, that first FBS win, still evading them. And Jacksonville State, I think it's a home victory versus Middle Tennessee there. UTEP, give me another home victory. I think Western Kentucky can win this game here. Big matchup between Jacksonville State and Liberty, but Liberty at home, you just cannot doubt them. And then another one between a couple of teams battling for a bowl game at this point, Louisiana Tech at Sam Houston State. Why not give me Sam Houston State as the home team? Sonny Cumbie at Louisiana Tech, it feels like the experiment is starting to lose some of its luster. And he needs to turn in a lot of wins real quick. FIU playing host to New Mexico State. Maybe this is a game where New Mexico State and this squad can get their feet back under them, get a victory maybe to start to get them hoping for a bowl game. So that gets them to 4-4 with a couple straight conference victories in this prediction here. So we get it forward to Week 11, Western Kentucky at New Mexico State. This one, a test for Western Kentucky. New Mexico State, I bagged on a lot, but I've given them a couple straight conference victories. I don't think it'll be all smooth sailing for Western Kentucky. Someone's going to bite them, and maybe the remnants of what Jerry Kill was building can be found, even though there was that big old portal exodus. Liberty at Middle Tennessee is interesting, but give me Liberty over ultimately in that one. And for Jacksonville State, I don't think it's going to be all linear. I think they'll lose one of these random conference games, especially on the road. They had some close ones last season, and they even had a few ugly losses last season. And then at Kennesaw State at home against Sam Houston State, let's give them their first ever FBS victory, the start of a budding rivalry possibly in the CUSA there. Western Kentucky, I don't think New Mexico State is going to have back-to-back road SEC victories for back-to-back seasons, although that would be hilarious against Texas A&M. Which takes us to Week 13, UTEP playing a road SEC game as well. That drops them to 6-5. Jacksonville State, I think, should have no issues. New Mexico State at Middle Tennessee, why not getting Derek Mason a victory there? New Mexico State a game away from bowl eligibility. And again, Liberty, they get some of their biggest games of the season at home. And for that reason, I think that they're going to have a really good shot at finding their way back to the conference title game and finding their way to an undefeated CUSA season. In fact, them going undefeated in the CUSA is just very, very high odds because of how the rest of the conference looks. And then I think Kennesaw State can get another FBS victory, this one at home against Florida International, who would just probably miss out in a bowl game in this case, which would be quite depressing for the Panthers as a team that has really not had a ton of historic success. But Mike McIntyre, like I've said, is a guy that has done well at a bad program before at Colorado. He's got Power 5 experience. Week 14, we're going to take Liberty on the road against Sam Houston State. Just not an intimidating enough environment. Talent gap isn't close enough. Middle Tennessee at FIU. Give me Middle Tennessee. Derek Mason squad getting that road victory. FIU going to end with a 4-8, 2-6 conference performance. Louisiana Tech at home over Kennesaw State. Why not? Maybe avoiding that 3-win curse that Cumbie faced in his first couple seasons. And hey, that's improvement. And then we've got UTEP at New Mexico State. Give me New Mexico State in that final game of the season, getting to bowl eligibility, dropping UTEP to 5-3. And then give me Western Kentucky at home to get them to 6-2 and to land Western Kentucky a spot in the conference title game. In all likelihood, that game will be for a conference title spot, which I think is really interesting stuff. I know some people are pretty high on Jacksonville State, so you might take them there. But that is my CUSA prediction. So here we are in the MAC predictions. We've done the American, we've done the CUSA. It's time to pick some games in the most fun conference in college football. You see a couple of MAC teams going out on a limb, playing some tough games in week 1. I believe we took Northwestern against Miami of Ohio here, but I really feel like Miami, Ohio could get that win. In fact, let's give UMass that win over Eastern Michigan there. and that's just all home teams in week 1. UMass is an underrated, tough place to play just compared to how little people think about UMass as a tough place to play. Give me FIU the home win. I think I had them over Central Michigan. Toledo, home win over UMass. Picking a lot of home teams here. Ball State, Missouri State. Missouri State, I believe, had a down year last year. Then we got Bowling Green and Penn State. So back-to-back weeks in the MAC where we take all home teams, which is interesting. Although we picked Jacksonville State there. Mississippi State, watch out for Toledo in that game. I don't have the guts to pick them right now, but watch out for Toledo. The MAC can strike at any time. Illinois getting the home victory there. I don't know if I'm bold enough to pick Miami, Ohio to win that one either. And look at that, 3 losses. Could be an 0-3 start. In fact, most likely will be an 0-3 start for Miami of Ohio, which is insane as a team favored to win the conference. Maybe they'll find a way to pull one of those games out. Buffalo at NIU. Give me Buffalo. Or give me NIU, I mean. Shout out Thomas Hammock. He's a follower. Ball State at Central Michigan. Couple middling teams. Who's going to step up? I don't really trust Mike New. That's another week where we picked all home teams. Maybe we need to show a little bit more respect to the teams on the road. Buffalo's a team that's going to be in a weird spot this year with a new coach, Linguist leaving. Road game against UConn. UConn is just a weird team, man. They can just get those wins. And might seem like we're being a little disrespectful to the MAC here, but the MAC does typically struggle pretty poorly in the non-conference. But I think Bowling Green could get a home victory over Old Dominion to hang their hat on. Give me Northern Illinois getting that victory over UMass, who is quite a few MAC games. They're about to join the MAC next season. Mike New getting a home victory for Ball State. Bowling Green at an Akron team that I just really don't have a ton of faith in. So we're going to take Bowling Green there. Miami of Ohio at Toledo. This is a major, major battle early in the season, and I think Toledo can win it. Miami, Ohio is going to play a lot of really difficult games at the start of the season, and I think that's just going to start to have an effect on them. Give me Bowling Green home against Northern Illinois. Give me Ohio to win one on the road, steal one against Central Michigan, although Ohio's returning production can be very low. It's going to be up to Tim Albin to have basically his best year as a head coach. Kent State, using the portal very heavily, trying to turn things around, and I think we're going to start to see the first signs of life in that new era for the Flashes. And Bowling Green, Scott Loeffler's squad, I haven't highlighted them yet, but look at the hot start they're off to in this prediction. I think they'll be a team to be messed with as well. Give me Miami of Ohio at home. Northern Illinois, trap game for Toledo. Give me NIU. This is the conference that just loves to cannibalize itself. Vandy, I think it's a home victory there. And then Buffalo. So Bowling Green with only 2 losses is the top dogs, and they go at Toledo. So give me Toledo. Western Michigan at home. Eastern Michigan in a win there. So as you can see, things in the MAC get a little chaotic really quick, especially when you have them losing all those non-conference games. I think Toledo wins one at Eastern Michigan there. NIU at Western Michigan, I feel like is a safe bet. That's a squad with a proven system, and I think they've just been ebbing and flowing. They've been right there, and wouldn't you know it, it's an all-road game selection here in Week 11. As we're getting down to it, 9 games into the season for the MAC, there's not too much crazy stuff that I have to say about the MAC, although give me Eastern Michigan, Chris Creighton's squad there. But what I will say is this conference has a lot of just really excellent head coaches that stick around, and excellent, obviously, relative to where they're operating. This is the MAC. You know, we're not tripping and thinking any of these guys are national contenders, but just coaches that want to be there, have proven systems, have produced talent in the past, and have stuck around. Like Chris Creighton is a guy. Chuck Martin has been around for a while. Jim McElwain is a guy that maybe hasn't had the success people are hoping at Central Michigan, but he certainly has a track record in the past, although I realize I have them at a terrible 3-8 record right now. And, you know, there's other guys, Jason Candle, Tim Albin, I think are both big guys to give a shout out to. And give me Ball State to pull off like a weird upset right there. Kent State, I think, can get maybe a win at Buffalo, which keeps Buffalo out of bowl eligibility. Akron going 1-11, I think, is pretty accurate. Although, give me Miami of Ohio to win at Bowling Green. Give me NIU to get a home win. Give me Ohio over Ball State. And give me Eastern Michigan over Western Michigan. So there it is. The MAC, completely chaotic. Of those top 6, Ohio, Bowling Green, Eastern Michigan, NIU, Miami, Toledo, I think any of them, any combination could be in the conference title game. In fact, you take Bowling Green there, looks like you got Bowling Green in the title game instead, or maybe it's NIU. Those are all teams I'm high on, although ultimately I am going to pick Toledo to win the MAC conference. So we went a little quick through the MAC, but it's just because the stakes aren't as high. It's super fun to watch, though. And don't get me wrong, I'll be tuning into every Tuesday and Monday game that the MAC plays throughout the season. But there it is, my MAC predictions. So here is the Mountain West predictions for the 2024 season. The Mountain West, a very talented Group of Five conference, arguably the most talented. I think the most notable position to talk about with this conference is their receiving. And give me Montana State over New Mexico there. But the receivers are just super talented. And there's just been a lot of chaos with the Mountain West. It's going to be a pretty dang fun conference. You talk about some of the things that happened in this non-conference. Multiple teams with head coaches leaving at random times. UNLV at Houston. Give me UNLV. You know what? I'm going to get a little crazy already. Nevada at Troy. Give me Troy. But you talk about the head coach vacancies at Fresno State, suddenly at Utah State. You talk about some of the quarterback stuff. San Diego State starting a true freshman that I don't think will be enough in an early game against Oregon State. I think Oregon gets their first win over Boise State. It's just a conference with a ton of intrigue, especially when you talk about some of these middle-tier teams like Hawaii and Colorado State and what they're potentially able to pull off. Wyoming under a new regime. San Jose State, coached by Ken Niumatalolo. There's definitely lots of room for interpretation as to how this conference will play out this year, and just a lot of unknown variables for these guys. So you just love to see a conference that there's really not a lot of answers at this point and a lot of questions, and so it's just exciting to start to answer those questions as we start to get into the season. And BYU at Wyoming is an interesting one. I think that made me think during the other one. Give me Cal at home over San Diego State. So we're really starting to get into the season here. I think Boise State gets another victory. Obviously, Spencer Danielson going to be head coach in the full-time capacity this year. I believe I took North Texas at home against Wyoming. Fresno State at New Mexico. Give me Fresno State. I've talked about New Mexico at length. Their head coach, obviously, Bronco Mendenhall, a guy that's been a lot of places, done a lot of things. He's a proven track record as a rebuilder. But, yeah, it's just year one. It feels like maybe there's too much to correct in order for the results to be seen between the white lines. I think Boise State can get this home victory over Washington State early in the season. We've got a Fresno State team traveling to play UNLV. I'm looking for stability. Barry Odom and UNLV have more stability than Fresno State at this point, and I know Fresno State fans are prideful. They're very active online. Hawaii at San Diego State. Interesting one. I really do like San Diego State this season, and I like Sean Lewis as a head coach, and I just like the direction the program looks like it's headed in under him. Syracuse at UNLV. I believe I did pick Syracuse, so I got to respect that pick. UNLV's got to go at Utah State. They lose their head coach. If Utah State still had Blake Anderson, I might be picking them in that game. I thought they were a definite sleeper this year. Give me Wazoo at Fresno State as well, though. But there's just a lot of intrigue in this conference. Boise State at Hawaii could be interesting as well, but give me Boise State. Oregon State, I think, is going to run through most Mountain West teams, but look for UNLV to get fired up. Oregon State is a lot regressed from last season. I think they lose that one at home. They just had a lot of talented players leave and a lot of slightly less talented players come in. So it's basic math. They're a team that is a little regressed. I think Colorado State in this in-state matchup against Air Force can get the win. And they just have a lot of really talented skill players that makes you really like the product. And I just would not make a habit of doubting a Jay Norvell coach team. This one, hugely pivotal. Boise State at UNLV. Give me Boise State in Las Vegas. We watched them beat UNLV in Las Vegas in the Mountain West title game. I think Army wins this one. I already picked that one in the American Conference predictions. Wazoo, I think, can get another road victory, this one against San Diego State. Utah State, a tough test at Wyoming. Both teams breaking in new coaches, basically. Utah State promoting somebody from within. I don't even really know who their guy is going to be. It's probably in an interim capacity this season. San Jose State at Fresno State. Give me Fresno State with the victory over San Jose State. Ken Niumatalolo, a great coach, though, that I think over time will be proved to be the right guy there. And Wyoming is a team that I've kind of disrespected here at 3-6. I'm giving them the win over New Mexico there. Hawaii at Fresno State. Really interesting one here. Give me Fresno State. Hawaii has had a history of beating that team. But give me Hawaii to upset UNLV in a big, crazy upset at home. Hawaii has been a program that's been through a lot recently. but I really ultimately have liked the rebuild that we've seen going on. If you think I'm being maybe a little too harsh or low on Air Force, they are one of the lowest teams in the country in terms of returning production. However, I do think they're still a sound system, and obviously Calhoun's done it at a high level for so long. Like, there's win number 6 right there. But they're just really low production, so a lot of uncertainty, as there is for a lot of these teams. We've got a tough one here. Utah State hosting San Diego State. I think Sean Lewis has this program back on the right track, and I think that'll reflect in their win-loss record. Boise State at Wyoming, why not? Laramie's a terrible place to play. Boise State's got to go there. Maybe there's an upset brewing. Boise State recently naming Maddox Madsen as the starting quarterback over the coveted 5-star Malachi Nelson, which has been an interesting development. And we'll see how that affects things going forward. And we've got Stanford at San Jose State. This is actually the last week of the season. I think Boise State gets a home win over the Beavs. Hawaii gets that win number 6. That would be a massive win, although technically not bowl eligible at there because they had 2 FCS games. So Hawaii needs to go 7-5. And then, of course, we have San Diego State beating Air Force to finish at 7-5. So things a little bit all over the place. New Mexico, I didn't give a single win to. Maybe they'll get one. Maybe Nevada will get one more or something like that. But I kind of stand by the rest of this. I think San Jose State and Utah State are probably your 2 best bets for the teams missing bowl games outside of Nevada and New Mexico. Hawaii getting in there. Wyoming with a surprisingly poor record compared to how I usually pick these. I think maybe I usually have them winning 1 or 2 other of these games to at least be bowl eligible. But I stand by the Boise State pick. Maybe if I was picking this again, I would have Fresno State losing an extra game or 2 and have either a Colorado State or a UNLV in there. So a little bit of chaos there. It is the Mountain West. Like I said, it's a little unpredictable, but I don't think the Mountain West is going to produce a college football playoff team this season because I think Boise State is their best bet. And there's some turmoil there, and they have to play Oregon and Washington State and Oregon State. So, yes, room for a good resume, but also room for a lot of losses. So here is the Sun Belt Conference, the final Group of 5 conference we're going to be doing in this video. And we've got 2 divisions, so the standings looking a little different here than they do elsewhere. But let's go ahead and pick some of these games. A lot of these ones have been picked for us already by some of the other videos. In fact, any non-conference game has already been picked. So a lot of these games are pretty cut and dry in terms of who I have. Nothing too insane here. And nothing I think I'm going to flip on. So we're picking, I like Texas State at home. They got the reigning Sun Belt Player of the Year at quarterback. They've got a really solid staff. They've got a defense that I think added a bunch. And so I think Texas State is going to be ready to get out and run, and I think they're going to be ready to go out and beat some teams. Give me Old Dominion at home. Give me Ohio. Give me some of these teams. Louisiana. Give me UAB. Give me Southern Miss. So the Sun Belt is always a super fun conference to watch for me as App State goes at Clemson. I don't think it's going to be enough, but I do think Texas State, welcoming ASU into their territory, can get the win there. There's just some teams with some interesting storylines, like South Alabama giving Major Applewhite a shot. Michigan beating Arkansas State, but that's an Arkansas State that finally found something under Butch Jones last season. App State at East Carolina. App State's a team that I think is in a window here. There's 2 App State games in Week 3, which I don't know if that's accurate because I don't think you can do that. But I'm sure that that's just an error. Maybe that was just supposed to be in Week 2, the App State-Clemson game. Virginia Tech, I think, beats Old Dominion on the road this year. Why not? Maybe Georgia State gets the best of Vandy. I know that they had a lot happen this offseason. So that's an interesting one. But, yeah, Coastal Carolina hosting Virginia, another one where maybe they could get a victory. The Sun Belt has definitely had some non-conference wins over the years that have been eye-opening, and I think they could get a few more this season. And you see the opportunities here, you know, the game against Tulane, the game against Virginia at home, the Virginia Tech one before that, and this one, App State over Liberty. I think it's going to be the biggest non-conference game of the Group of 5, and I think it's going to go to the Sun Belt. Georgia Southern, Georgia State playing an early little rivalry game there. Texas State, I think, gets the win at Sam Houston, and then Wake Forest getting the best, and LSU getting the best of some Sun Belt teams as the home teams. The fact that this conference is split into divisions makes things pretty interesting. Going to give Troy a loss there at home. Some people might be wondering, how could you pick against Troy, the 2-time defending Sun Belt champions, especially at home? And it's because they lost everyone. They lost everyone, including the entire staff that made them successful in the first place. And so Troy, I think, is going to have some growing pains under Jared Parker, who's just a completely unproven coach, and I don't really like a ton of the things I'm hearing out of that camp and out of that program right now. And Louisiana is a team I do like. Michael Desmarais, I think, is building things in the right direction. They've got a ton of production back at home against App State. Maybe they can knock App State off balance in an early conference game, and that could certainly complicate things in the Sun Belt a little bit in terms of how people thought things might play out. I think James Madison or Bob Chesney is going to be in a good spot. Marshall at Georgia Southern is another interesting one. Give me Charles Huff and Marshall getting an early tough victory. There are going to be some teams that people are expecting to make a leap and make a bowl game, not making a bowl game in the Sun Belt. And that is because last season, nearly everyone in the conference made a bowl game. I believe Louisiana Monroe and Southern Miss were the only two teams to not go bowling last year. And there's just been a lot of movement, a lot of coaches changing posts, a lot of stuff that happened. Give me Old Dominion at home over Texas State. Texas State's defense is going to be a little spotty, so if there's a team that can somehow manhandle McLeod and manhandle that offense and slow them down like Old Dominion can with Jason Henderson at linebacker, really talented team, then they can get the best of Texas State. But Texas State in a shootout is going to beat most teams, and that's why I'm so high on them going into this season as we're picking some of these other teams. I think Georgia Southern gets that win at South Alabama. They're going to definitely have some growing pains after losing Kane Womack, who was doing such a great job over there. App State at Coastal Carolina, another tricky one early, but I think App State gets the job done there. Give me James Madison at home as well. Bob Chesney off to a red-hot start according to this. Arkansas State at Louisiana is another interesting one. But in this case, I think I'm going to go with Arkansas. No, I'm going to go with Louisiana. I don't know what I was thinking there. Butch Jones at Arkansas State, though, I think definitely could be a team that breaks out. Southern Miss is another interesting one. They raked in the top-ranked recruiting class in the Sun Belt, and yet I still think could be a tough season for them between the white lines because you saw how things panned out for them last year. 3-9 season, a disappointment overall. And biggest game of the Sun Belt, James Madison at App State. I like App State in that game, though. Georgia Southern at Coastal is another pretty major matchup there. Give me Coastal, although I think Tim Beck's recruiting class is going to get tested here, and not sure if they'll be up to the test. We'll have to see. And it's just a team I'm really interested to see how their season plays out. Troy getting their 8th loss with that one to Louisiana. I don't know if it'll necessarily be that bad, so let's flip that game for them. Want to try and keep this as close to what I actually think is going to happen. Let's give Troy the final win to get to 5-7, just miss a bowl game. James Madison over Marshall. Coastal Carolina at a team in Georgia State that lost their head coach, really went into the portal, which I think creates a lot of volatility, and I think that'll just end on the wrong side for Georgia State. And then we've got Old Dominion at Arkansas State. Give me Old Dominion getting a road victory to end the season. That's a team with a lot of production that there's a lot there to like. And so there it is, Texas State versus App State in the Sun Belt title game. I like Texas State. I'm taking Texas State in that matchup. And if this plays out like this, Texas State's going to be in a really good position to potentially put themselves in the playoff conversation and put themselves in a playoff spot. And you look at how my predictions turned out. Looks like South Alabama, Southern Miss, Troy, Louisiana Monroe, Georgia Southern, Georgia State. That's 6 teams missing a bowl game in this conference compared to just 2 from last year. And I think that's just a taste of what could happen to create some chaos and make some fan bases angry in the Sun Belt. So really interesting stuff to track. And I can't wait for the Sun Belt to get underway and the season to get underway. So there it is, all of my Group of 5 predictions from the American to the Sun Belt. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you sat through it all, you're an absolute champ and an absolute trooper. Feel free to ask for any clarifying thoughts on any of these teams. But for the most part, this represents my overarching general thoughts on all of these teams.